Give you the markets update now, and local trade flat at the start of the day. The JSE closing firmer while global peers were mixed on Monday, with investors looking ahead to South Africa's GDP and US jobs data this week. Executive Director at Citadel Global is Bianca Botes. She joins us now for a quick update on how things are shaping up at the JSE. Bianca, good morning to you. Let's start with the sluggish rand so far this morning ahead of the release of that all-important GDP data.
Good morning to you and the viewers. The South African rand's really feeling a little bit of pressure at the moment. We've seen it weaken back to lows last seen in October, so trading just above the 18.90 rand mark against the US dollar. And this rand weakening is really twofold. So firstly, we've seen the dollar recoup some of its losses that we saw last week. So the rand really blowing off some steam from that gains that we saw during the course of last week. And then obviously also we are facing quite a few domestic issues, such as load shedding, such as the logistical issues. And that's really weighing on the rand at the moment too.
Let's then talk about what will likely be the headlines starting perhaps this afternoon all the way into tomorrow's papers. South Africa's third quarter GDP figures, those are set to take the spotlight today. Any predictions on what will likely come out of this data and, more importantly, chances of growth, GDP growth?
So unfortunately, I think that we're going to see quite a bit of grim reading following these results being published. When we start looking at the consensus expectations, as per some of the Bloomberg surveys that we saw, it really points to no growth quarter on quarter. While we are expecting a 0.1% contraction year on year. When we start looking at broader figures, currently the expected growth for 2023 is 0.7%. And then it will only start looking a little bit better next year with a slight improvement to 1% expected for 2024. So these figures are really nothing to get excited about. And there are quite a few local risks that's weighing on economic growth. So I think everybody in the country is quite familiar with the recent stage 6 load shedding that we experienced. The matter at the port isn't helping South African growth. And then that coupled with a global economic slowdown just really doesn't bode well for South African GDP.
Whilst we're talking about GDP numbers, let's get your views, Bianca, on the overall state of the South African economy looking ahead to 2024. Your thoughts?
I think the state of the economy is not one to get too excited about. I think, as I mentioned, we are facing some severe risks to our economy from a local idiosyncratic perspective. And we are really seeing quite a bit of disjointed trade coming through as there's more fracturing in some of the trade agreements globally. So I think 2024 is going to hold quite a few surprises in terms of who we align ourselves with for trade agreements, what trade in the new year will look like. But also it's crucial for South Africa to really start addressing some of these key issues that we are facing, such as the load shedding issues, such as the issue at Transnet and our ports. And unless we can really start fixing these local issues, it will be very hard for South Africa to muster growth in the new year.
Let's conclude with commodities. Oil prices, little change there today amid the uncertainty over the voluntary output cuts by the oil cartel. It's called OPEC+. Talk us through those factors that are likely to influence trade.
So the oil market actually saw a 6% decline over the last 3 sessions, and it is steady just above $78 per barrel during trade yesterday or this morning actually. And this steadying in the price has actually seen more of a technical balance, not necessarily sentiment driven. And there are quite a few concerns in the market relating to a decrease in energy demand as economies globally start to show signs of strain. And those fears around demand is actually offsetting any supply cuts initiated by OPEC. So not really seeing any sustainable momentum in the oil price at the moment.
Bianca Botes, Executive Director at Citadel Global. Thank you very much for the markets update.